Greetings and welcome to this week's episode of the Pixel Crashers podcast, a podcast where apparently everything fucks up, the world ends, and we're still standing here laughing. I'm Angelus de Mortiel, together with Tweedledee and Tweedledum, KevN7 and Xaiphen.
Hola! I don't know.
And just a little bit of a disclaimer on there. Apparently, if you see chat relay stuff on there, so at some point in time, if we rebroadcast, oh gosh, volume decided to go.
Mort broke it.
Yeah, I'm breaking everything this morning. That's just really what it is. So there's a chat relay that's running that's apparently just repeating messages that people are typing across all the various platforms, like that was at any point necessary. So that's a thing. So anyway, how you guys been? What have you been up to, Kev?
We're playing Gears.
You've been losing at Gears, you said?
Not well, a little bit. I'm only bronze, but I've been smashing all these console players, and it's been fun. They just disintegrate with my mouse.
Mm-hmm.
My mouse melts console players. So if you want to play Gears of War 4, understand that I play on PC. I play King of the Hill. You can join me, and I will destroy you with my Nasher, and it'll be fun. Because I like just watching console players just splat all over the screen.
Well, my favorite part about it is that it's only like relaying it to certain. Anyway, sorry, I'm just enjoying how bad everything fucked up. Gears of War, I'm certain is highly entertaining for people that don't really want to try very hard.
I don't know. It's a very try-hard game. I'm dripping in sweat.
You know, your mouse aiming superiority did not hold up against my controller aiming on Siege.
That's because Gears isn't about aim; it's about reflexes.
Yeah.
It's a Twitch shooter.
There goes the.
I play Twitch shooters.
Uh-huh.
And I still out-aim controller players.
Yeah,
and it's glorious.
Siege, a competitive first-person shooter, does not require.
You outscore controller players that are playing on consoles. Really.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that they're playing on console. It's not my fault. I ain't telling them to buy a console. I've been telling them to buy a PC for years. That's on them. They better hold that L and love it.
So then my major question is what did they change something recently that made Gears favor PC players more recently?
Oh, I don't think it's a favor of PC players. I think I'm just destroying console players.
So you just think that you're that good somehow?
The scoreboard says I'm that good.
Uh-huh.
I'm usually first or second on the scoreboard for my team. Usually right up there with the other team too, whether we win or lose.
By usually, he means like once a week, maybe once a month.
Yeah, that's what I think. Something like that.
I think Xaiphen's just mad because, well, both of them are probably mad because they rage quit Overwatch because my aiming was superior.
So wait, are you saying that you still play Overwatch? Because I ain't never seen you playing no Overwatch recently.
I played it as of 2 weeks ago.
Curious.
It's not my main game anymore.
I'm bored of Overwatch. What are you talking about?
I haven't seen you on Overwatch in over a year, sir.
Yeah, I know. I boredom quit it.
That's what I'm saying. You quit Overwatch. Both of you did.
You said that game didn't make me angry. It bored me.
Oh, I got angry. I'm not gonna lie at all. I totally got toxic as hell. Because yeah.
Morty was the angry silver.
Yeah. It's silver. Shit. Well, maybe I was silver at one point, but I wouldn't even have given me that high of praise.
I was only mad when I would do well and still drop down from silver or from gold to silver, and then back down to bronze. But I myself am doing well. But I can't. But the team don't want to play together. Like you can't play 3v6 in Overwatch.
Yeah.
And then they said, "Oh well, now you can't play with your friends either." I was like, "Oh, that's when they lost you, Morty. And that's about the time I started to pull out."
Yeah, I can see that. Oh, I see where you guys at. There's a I found the chat relay setting real quick, so I'm gonna be working on fixing that, guys. But yeah, so Xaiphen, did you finally get a chance to beat the sacrifice in that one game?
Yeah.
Sacrifices.
Yeah, sacrifices.
Who got
Well,
sacrificed?
Sacrifice update had a bit of a bug on there where the new type of, well, not new type, new class of Warframe, I should say, came out with that update. And you weren't supposed to get that Warframe until after you went through that little story snippet.
That was great, though.
Where you could get it early. And I got it early. And I delayed finishing the story snippet for, I think, 20 hours because of that.
I mean, that seems completely fair. No, I did the same thing though. I had that same glitch, and I thought, hey, why not? I was like, I realized that I could just transfer back into the Warframe, and then I kept it. And I was like, okay.
I'm disappointed that my shirt looks super dirty on the stream. It's not me. It's the background. It's the background.
Yeah.
My shirt's clean.
You say that, but we know better. Kev's just wearing a dirty shirt from digging around in that damn vault all day.
Facts.
But yeah, so aside from that, so the first thing I suppose we should chat about because of course we are, is nVidia.
13.5 million new Steam accounts.
Huh?
13.5 million new Steam accounts.
A bunch of hackers. Is that what you're talking about?
Nobody's hacking. We got more people to game with on PC. 13.5 million new first-time purchasers between January and May on Steam. That's glorious. I love seeing the PC.
So hackers is what you're talking about, right? Because all PC players are hackers, Kev.
Only in Sea of Thieves and old Call of Duty games.
I keep hearing this damage control.
Something like that.
It's only damage control when you play an Xbox game against a PC player and lose. Then they're hacking and it's damage control.
Sure. So in any case, though,
don't play hacks. Just get good.
Talking about that, though, talking about hacks, or well, not really hacks, nothing related, in fact. So about that nVidia, and how they said, oh, we're gonna stop our partner program that more or less locks brands into nVidia only. So they're like, oh, people didn't like that. So instead, we're gonna say that all journalists can't say anything about our games for like several years because, quote unquote, it's trade secrets. So do you guys think that nVidia is just that dumb?
Yes.
Like,
well, I don't think they're that dumb. I think they think that we as consumers are that dumb. They thought that people were just gonna go for it, and I think especially in the PC gaming space, in particular, you have to be completely transparent. You can't do clever word games. You can't like do this little silly funny shit with how you word it. For example, when they did with Fallout 76, you can play the game solo, implying that there was a single player when there isn't. You can't do shit like that to PC players. We're gonna find you out. We're gonna call you on your bullshit. And then your game's gonna flop.
I'm not even sure what the hell they were thinking with that one. That one just like, why would you even say that? We know better.
I think those of us that are informed know better. Those of us that pay attention. I think they're going to get some people who are just like, oh, I like Fallout. Oh, this is the day the next Fallout comes out. I'll get it. But those of us that aren't like watching and paying attention to everything, the people that just heard, hey, there's a new Fallout game coming out. Here's the date. They pre-ordered it. Then they're going to go back to playing whatever they're playing. Then it comes out, and oh shit, this doesn't have a campaign. I feel for the guys that buy Black Ops 4. They don't pay attention. They just say, hey, oh, another Call of Duty's coming out. I like Call of Duty, and I play it for the single player. I'll pre-order this, because there are people that just play the single player. This has no campaign.
Well, that was...
Sony, the fuck you mean no refunds?
That's it. Yeah. this only helps me cement my better feeling about jumping away from nVidia. Honestly, that these sort of business practices that they're doing. Granted, on my end of things, once product's purchased, it's what I have. It's done deal. So like, unless they're fucking with drivers or some shit like that, whatever they do with future generations of products that I probably won't purchase, at least not for a long time, it's not going to affect me short term as it will long term.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives me a little bit better feeling that, like, yeah, you know what? I'm not helping them support that bullshit right now.
Right, and I think the same goes for Intel and NVIDIA, if I'm honest. Because Intel's on some bullshit, too.
Yeah.
Intel does some high quality bullshit. I really wish when I upgraded my system, I had the month or two to wait. Because I was going to go Ryzen. Then my motherboard went kaput, and I needed something new, or I wasn't gonna wait for Ryzen another month or two.
Well, I mean, to be completely fair, I think you probably were better off waiting on Ryzen, because I think this next generation of Ryzen and the Intel chips that followed as a result of that were both better. Like, I think both you and I we bought a little bit early. I think that, had we gotten the 8 series Intel or into the 2nd gen Ryzen, we would have had probably a lot better chips than what was previous in the past several years.
Well, I think that's the case for you, but for me, my motherboard crapped out.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why, because I wasn't going to buy a new CPU and motherboard yet. I was waiting for Ryzen, and then my motherboard crapped out. I had my tax return. I had just gotten my 1080, so I'm like, well, fuck, what can I get now? So I don't want to wait a couple months for Ryzen to maybe come out in the summer and then not be able to play any games until then.
Well, on top of that, if you had gotten the AM4 motherboard for Ryzen, that's, they're projecting to have full support for that through 2020, I think, or later. So instead of, Intel's like, you have to upgrade your motherboard with each chip generation. That one you have several generations that's good for. So if like 2 generations later you want to update your Ryzen, you can just swap, update your BIOS, swap the chip, and you're good to go.
Right, and that's another thing that really pissed me off about Intel when they came with their response to Ryzen. I think it was Coffee Lake. They had Skylake and KB Lake. I'm on KB Lake that has the same socket.
Yeah.
And then they switch, and I'm like, 6 months later, you change the socket? Like, the fuck?
Well,
I didn't even have the CPU 6 months, because I got it in like early March, and they swapped it in June. And the CPUs had just come out. They come out like in December.
Because they were, their previous sockets could only support the 4-core design. When they upgraded to the 6-core base design, they had, that's just the physical nature of it. But the thing is like, NVIDIA's bullshit is a lot more demeaning to the consumer. Intel, like, they've had some shitty shit, but their biggest problem is getting complacent, because they have not had significant CPU competition for 4 years?
I mean, NVIDIA is no different.
Here's the thing. Well, NVIDIA's had a little bit of competition from AMD, but not super strong. But the thing is NVIDIA, instead of trying to respond with products, they try to respond with blocking their shit, locking down their tech news and stuff like that. Whereas Intel, they go with, they actually try and respond with products like, oh, you've got this 8-core. Well, here, we're now doing a 6-core consumer CPU. And Intel is actually, they've been setting themselves up in motion to actually produce a consumer-grade GPU. They're getting it back into the GPU market, and it's not like the Knight's Corner, well, we almost kind of did it, but it really is only an AI sort of thing. Now they're actually looking into building a GPU that is, not just AI or commercial grade, but a consumer grade for gaming. And that's they're trying to slot a date by 2020 for that one. That one I know is 2020.
And that one seems actually pretty good, honestly.
Up their game in competition, as opposed to just locking down news of their products.
Yeah. I do think that's a key difference. Found the fucking relay mode. Yay.
Yeah, it's good, man. Whoop, whoop.
But yeah, like I think that's a big thing is that NVIDIA actually seems to be trying to compete, whereas NVIDIA is just anti-compete. They're trying to cut off competition.
They're like Sony in a way. Because Sony's doing it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, we all know about that Sony. Oh, you guys wanna? Ooh, yes. No relay. Wait. Okay, we're back. We're back to things being
back to normal. You still trying to troubleshoot that shit?
No, I fixed it. It's fixed.
Good.
It's fixed. So now people can go back to not having to worry about their text duplicating 16 times.
The PR, the little PR stunts between AMD and Intel recently have just or at least from your average consumer point of view and my point of view, I like how lighthearted it feels. Because you had AMD's response to Intel's 8086 giveaway, which was funny as hell. Because Intel is, they got the 50th anniversary of the company, 40th anniversary since their original 8086 chip way the fuck back when. So they have an i7 version named 8086. And they were doing a giveaway where they'd give away 8,086 of them. Well, AMD responded with, hey, you give those to us, we'll give you, a brand new Ryzen 7 Series 2 chip in place of that. Intel responded to that jest with a good one of their own. It's like, if you really wanted a 8086 chip, you could have just asked.
Wow.
Yeah, so, one burn against another, and it's, I like the lighthearted feel of it. It's not aggressive, it's not insulting, it's just, it seems fun, I don't know. It just...
Yeah, like that was...
AMD versus Intel thing is a lot more good-natured, more actual business competition as opposed to cutthroat or not business competition, but... actual product development competition as opposed to cutthroat business competition that you see between AMD and NVIDIA.
NVIDIA just wants to end AMD as far as GPUs go.
Yeah.
But my problem, I think, Intel just tends to do a lot of anti-consumer shit too.
Yeah, they do. In general, it's...
Yeah, it's just general Intel.
Anybody...
And it sucks because Intel has generally the better product.
Yeah, and that's my thing is that I obviously I have a 1080 in my computer because it is what was best, right? And I feel like it's a good graphics card. Yeah, maybe the TI is better, whatever. That's irrelevant to me. My major point there is that at what point do you making solid products go out the window whenever you are just being a complete asshat? You know what I mean? Like that's my major thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah, I hear you. And then with the AMD and NVIDIA even, what frustrates me about AMD is why won't they compete with the TIs?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, your Vega 64 is a competitor to a 1080.
Yeah,
it's in the same ballpark, but nothing competes with the 1080 Ti or even the Titans. So it's always perceived as Intel or AMD. It's always interpreted that NVIDIA is just better.
What you got to look at is the position that AMD was in and what they were trying to do at the time. Because yes, NVIDIA does make CPUs, but those are all ARM. Whereas, they have a little bit more dedication and also selective diversity. Like AMD tackles two desktop major PC gaming components at the same time. Intel, one. NVIDIA, one. So they have a little bit more selective focus on that. AMD was trying to develop a new generation of GPU and CPU at the same time. The focus went on the CPU. They tried to improve efficiency because that was the big thing that the thing that was hurting their PR on the GPU route was they were hot boxes. Well, any of their stuff, but GPU, they had the performance, but they were hot boxes. Their CPU just didn't have the performance, so they had to tackle both of those at near the same time. Well, they tackled the efficiency issues on the GPU until they came up with Vega, and that was their attempt at trying to be efficient but still be a high-end competitor. they just they didn't have the funding due to being so low, last place for so long. They didn't have the funding to really push it hard enough. They put more into their CPU because they saw potential for a better return on that, which can then lead into future GPU development and still CPU development, because they still got to make money, to be able to innovate and develop. They're a business. I understand that. They got to make their money, so they're going to prioritize what's going to be the quicker fix to their competitive game.
Right, I hear that.
Yeah, and I think overall, I think the big thing is that a lot of these companies are fighting for market share value, and unfortunately in general, the market as a whole is very anti-competitive, because you have Intel making chips, you have AMD making chips, that's it. Then you have nVidia making GPUs and AMD making GPUs, and that's it. I would actually love to see Intel. I can't wait for Intel to actually make a GPU, because that does mean that there are more Intel more GPU competition. I would actually go a step further and say that nVidia should start making CPUs, like actual full desktop CPU.
Yeah, party system.
Yeah, like get more competition on both fronts, because then they all start competing more. They start getting more aggressive, and that you see what just a little bit of competition did in the CPU market. AMD finally got off their ass and did something new with Ryzen, and all of a sudden that's now spurned a whole it's not necessarily amazing improvements, but you definitely see a new grade of CPU hitting the consumer market as a result. Like, everything has stepped up significantly, just because AMD got a little bit competitive for once.
I can see that. My concern also is, when we talk about competition too, is what about the consumers? There's a reason why AMD GPUs are like 3% of the market.
Yeah.
It's even and that's what I go back about the perception. Perception is reality. People perceive NVIDIA and Intel as just the superior products, to the point where people say, and I've seen many people say, oh, you get AMD if you're broke, or if you're cheap, or if you just want the best bang for your buck, something like that. Like, if you just want raw performance, stay away from AMD. And that's not quite true, especially right now. Right now, I would say Ryzen is the way to go. Right now.
Yeah, with the newest generation of Ryzen that just came out, straight up, like that. And I think
even the last generation, I would have taken Ryzen last generation over the current Intels too.
It depends. Like, there was some of them that I thought were actually pretty solid, but like just the baseline, like, what was it, the R, I think it was the R, or the 1700 or whatever it was. I'm trying to remember my numerology.
The RX 1700, I think it's called.
The i5 version, essentially, not the i7 version.
Oh, the 80, I think it was 600.
Something like that, but I think it was like 1700 and 1900 was the high end one, or maybe it was the.
That's the Ryzen. You're flipping around Ryzen and Intel.
Okay, but in any case, though, the point is that that second highest version, I was like, that's for the money that it offers. It's pretty solid. However, when you got to the high end on there, $500 for that high end chip. I'm not talking about Threadripper, because that's kind of a different market segment on there. $500 for a chip that actually, when you kind of benchmarked it, it didn't perform much different than price for performance. It didn't perform much different than a $300 i7, right? And I was like, yeah, it's tough to justify that 40% price jump from $300 to $500 without getting a whole lot out of it. So in that regard, I felt like that was a little bit weird, but in the second generation, they seem to have rectified that. There is the $500 segment is a significant jump. So.
Well, there is one thing that was actually a deal, though, with the entire Ryzen system is included CPU cooler that is actually effective. Well, no, I shouldn't say effective. It's effective and quiet. It's actually competitive to many aftermarket CPUs. So you don't like, if you want something that's quiet and cools well, you're not having to look to spend extra money on top of that CPU purchase with the Ryzen.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that I really am hopeful that more, like, I'm interested to see whenever we start getting into next generation of CPU type device, like we start getting into quantum computing and that sort of thing. Where is that going to leave Intel? AMD at least has GPUs to fall back on.
Yeah, I think that's what nVidia is really focusing on too. You see everything with what's called with their technology
stuff,
focus. Yeah, the deep learning, the AI assistant learning, all that. That I think nVidia is going in that direction. I think nVidia eventually is going to probably leave games alone because that's not where the money is.
You know what you're going to see is IBM comes out of nowhere with their market CPUs with the quantum computing to the consumer level. Like, wait, IBM is the back end of the product business? Like, we've been in development of this product for the past 20 years.
Oh, God. But speaking of dystopian future, ruled by nVidia, in which case we're all slaves, let's talk.
Are we already slaves to plastic?
Well, sort of. Or slaves to software, depending on...
I was talking about credit cards.
Yeah. Red Shell. So, if you guys haven't paid attention to the news, essentially what happened, this originally started a few weeks ago. So we're a little bit behind on there, but there's been developments since then. So a long time ago, like I would say probably beginning of June, it came to light, like essentially someone was rooting around in the files, probably modding their game or whatever, and found this this library. It's what's known as a convenience library, or a DLL file, called Red Shell. And so they started doing some research into this Red Shell. What is it? Well, it turns out that it's a kind of an analytics tracking library that allows games that have this library installed to interface with a web service called Red Shell, where they can track, like, do you buy the game after you click on an ad for it or something like that. But it seemed like it was also gathering a little bit more than just that. They claim that it was only grabbing these specific things, but like I said, it was a little bit suspicious on there. Big thing exploded, branded as spyware, and it was like, oh my gosh, and found out that it's running in dozens of PC games. We have no idea if it's even running on any console games, because obviously we can't look at any of the files of that. It could be running on all of them. But my thing is that it's... I'll get you guys' thoughts first, and then I'll come back to what my kind of viewpoint is on it. Kev, since you're now typing and look like you're extremely busy not being here on the podcast.
I'm trying to promo the podcast, thank you. Trying to get people involved. I'm spreading links, so I've been doing the last couple minutes.
Kev is like Joe. Remember how Joe was always on Reddit, like while we were on the podcast? Kev's on Twitter.
But Joe would be on Reddit though, like just reading about Warframe. I'm here like, hey, check out the podcast. This is what we're talking about. Here's a link. Join us.
But anyway, so Red Shell. What are your thoughts on this Red Shell software?
We already know about my thoughts. I think it's some bullshit.
Well, we don't know about your thoughts. I know about your thoughts, but the world.
Yes, the world. I went in on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, you know my thoughts. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, it's your fault. Just playing. But
So there's a reason why the subtitle says Red Shillery. By the way, you catch that, right? Kev playing right into it. Chilling for his Twitter.
Yeah, exactly, facts. So anyway, my thoughts. It's bullshit. At what point do we respect the people who buy our products? And that's what this is. This is about a respect of privacy. This is about corporations think it's cool to violate us. And I understand a lot of developers removed it from the game, but it's not about removing it from the game. It's why was it there in the first place? It's why did you think that this was okay and this was kosher? And I get it. You want to see how your advertising dollars, how your advertising is doing. Is it doing what it's supposed to be doing? Great. This isn't the way to do it. Maybe do an opt-in system. I might have even been slightly okay with an opt-out system, you know, but just to put it in there and not
just to be clear, there is an opt-out system right now.
There is. I've yet to see.
You have to go to Red Shell's website and submit a form. But the thing is that there's no guarantee that you're actually opted out of it.
I saw that. So I'm talking about like a true opt-out system. That's not an opt-out system. That's hey, will you please take this off my computer so that I can play my game in peace?
Oh no, it doesn't take the library. So what's on your computer, like I said, is what's known as a convenience library. All that is a toolbox that's sitting in the game library that the developer can use, and in which case you're not going to put it there if you're not going to use it, right? But all that does is it interfaces with a web service that's analytics tracking. The thing is that they don't need that convenience library there to still submit the information gathered through other means. They just have to do it manually as opposed to having this nifty toolbox to do it. And that's something I think a lot of people misunderstood. They thought that the file itself was spyware. No, the analytics tracking service is kind of the concern that's on the web, not the just library that's stored on your computer. You know, and that's I think that's a major concern there. But Xaiphen, what do you think? I know that you actually live in a house that's made entirely out of glass, so you don't care about privacy at all.
Oh yeah, of course, never. No. No.
I mean, if you have nothing to hide, should you really be afraid of people violating your privacy? That's not me, actually. That's not really how I feel. I'm just doing damage control.
I'll get to that in a minute.
It's okay to throw stones from glass houses if you get a fucking machine gun on your roof. Thank you, Seth MacFarlane, for that joke. At any rate, yes. Hey, I didn't plagiarize. I gave credit where credit was due. But the thing about this is we are growing away from a actual privacy world. You can either fight it or accept it. Like, the thing is, advertising has always been big money. Now that advertising, they've always realized, well, we'll just generalize whether it's working or not to do based on actual profit incoming. Well, now that they can actually track it real time, that their advertising is effectively working, everybody's getting a lot more aggressive on that. And it's not just Red Shell. You see that everywhere. Like there what was it? Analytica.
Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah, that's the one. Which was advertising tracking on Facebook. The big problem with them,
a bit more than that.
Well, they got compromised outside of that too.
Yeah, well, they were actually an advertising firm, so they're gathering the information and then also using it, all in one fell swoop. So they're kind of like a Google of sorts.
Right.
But here's the way to think about it: is people look at the privacy invasion thing, and I'm not speaking on behalf of this. I'm not for it. I'm thinking of it. People are an outcry on privacy invasion. But what do you think about when you think of privacy invasion? An actual person snooping through your shit. Whereas when you look at this isn't, there's people involved, but this isn't a person snooping through your shit.
It's automated snooping through your shit.
Yeah, it's automated snooping through your shit. So it is not making you, say, part of the rumor mill or the gossip at work or some other shit, somebody talking shit about you, using it as leverage against you or trying to blackmail you or even incriminate you if that happens to be what they find. They don't care about that shit. They just care about this. How can they turn that information into getting money?
Mm-hmm. And I think I do think that is yeah. Kev, could you grab that list, that link I posted?
I'm grabbing it. Grabbing it now. I don't know if I have permission to post links yet though in the chat, so I'm gonna try.
Oh wait, yeah, Kev. I don't know if Kev is a mod.
I'm a mod. I just last time I tried it,
The
it
bot
didn't
was
work.
like, "Fuck you."
Exactly, the bot told me to go to hell. So I'm gonna grab the link again and I'll try it again.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So yeah, in any case though, the big thing on there though is that, and this is kind of where this is really
Yeah, it
where.
deleted the link.
Huh?
It deleted the link. I'll post it on the Discord more if you want to go and share it for them.
It didn't. It didn't delete it.
Yeah, it
No, on Twitch.
On Twitch.
Twitch. Yeah, I posted it on Twitch.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. You're crazy, man.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna screenshot you what it said. This is KevN7 Kev deleted link.
Anyway, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. Going back to it here. There are two like lines of thought that I have on this. So the first thing is we kind of go into an ethical discussion of disclosure.
Oh, pure ethics.
So here's my thing.
Episode ethics
is that, and this is Cambridge Analytica and kind of where Facebook shifted. I think a lot is that, so with privacy concerns, the big thing is that I think that people are generally okay with sacrificing their privacy as long as you fucking tell them explicitly in clear language, not buried in a fucking terms of service. You explicitly tell them up front, hey, we might use some of your data. It's anonymous data. Here's exactly what we're looking at. You know, here it's none of your personal information is attached to this. We're using it just for our own internal purposes in order to, you know, track advertising that we buy. You know, just say that. People tend to appreciate that shit, and then they'll be like, okay, yeah, whatever, no big deal. It's at what point you don't say anything. Kevin's just posting the link again. What the hell, man? Stop spamming the chat.
spam.
Anyway, so here's the thing. Like that's my major thing is that when you look at it and you kind of see that they didn't tell anybody, I think that's the major problem. But I think that, again, as Xaiphen was saying, is that we're kind of living in a world where privacy is becoming increasingly a kind of a commodity or a monetized item. And
I don't. We're at a point now where you have to ask for your privacy back.
Yeah.
And the argument people make is, well, do you have anything to hide? It's
Yeah.
not about hiding the information. It's about, why are you in my business in the first place?
Yeah. And my thing is that the other part on there too is that you also often hear the argument of, well, if you got nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. Well, this isn't government like investigating you for a crime, right? That's not really a major concern with this particular instance. Not about I've got nothing to hide. It's about, well, I may not have anything to hide, but I still would prefer to, you know, not have people knowing everything about me. You know, like maybe there's some stuff that I would not like to disclose up front. You know, like my past history of, you know, of collecting bottle caps. Like maybe I don't want people to know about that. I
don't want people to know that I'm a cat herder.
Kev actually has 50 cats in his house.
Yeah, you heard that.
And an army of vicious mice.
Or not.
That won't leave. They're in cahoots with the cats.
They actually work with the cats.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, my thing is that there should be a certain base expectation of, hey, I don't want people to know everything about me. That should be a person's right to not want people to know everything about them. However,
right.
That will come with concessions and costs. If you don't want people to know shit about you, you might have to sacrifice Facebook. You know, that is been long known by anybody with a damn bit of sense as one of the most successful intelligence gathering tools in the face of the planet. You know, like if you didn't know that Facebook was spying on your ass, you're kind of dumb. You know.
But here's the one question I have though. What about like say cell phone companies, where landline phones are becoming increasingly going the way of the dodo?
Yeah.
These devices they're everything to most people. They're sometimes your form of entertainment, you're linked to the outside world, Google, Facebook, it's all that shit. What's to stop Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, whoever from selling your data?
Certainly not the FCC, I'll tell you that.
They already want to get rid of net neutrality. I'm pretty sure they've already written something to get rid of
Egypt Pie's enjoying his little
Egypt Pie.
Yeah, Egypt Pie or Egypt Pie is certainly enjoying his paycheck from all the wireless companies in order to steal all your help them steal all your data. That by the way is a gross exaggeration. That's not really what he's doing, but it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Anyway, that's another conversation.
Like, kind of a little bit more redefining my earlier argument is, like the privacy concerns, the discussion of privacy, what you define as privacy. People, who have privacy concerns, they're absolutely concerned about an individual person having a hold of their information. But if it's a more or less I'm not even saying faceless business, that only can think about one thing and nothing else.
Yeah.
Amen.
And that's it.
Well, here's the thing: is that the moment the information is collected, it can be stolen. That's the major problem here, right? So that's my thing is that while yes, whoops, as I'm dropping shit, don't mind.
We're dropping shit.
As I am, as I kind of am quick to point out to people is that I don't think the concerns, like for example, that Cambridge Analytica or Red Shell or any of these other companies are literally your what's the guy from that Rocky and Bullwinkle, the guy with the the curly Q mustache. Like everybody is not Boris. Yeah, everybody's not like the Boris, the like nefarious evil Bond villain that's trying to steal your data for some nefarious secret society taking over the world bullshit. No, I don't, and I don't think that is what people are really worried about. The bigger worry is that once it's out of that person's hands, they can no longer control how it's disseminated, and that's really the problem. Even if a company swears they're as altruistic as possible, and maybe they're even being honest, like they legitimately believe they're being altruistic, that does not mean that it can be stolen from them from someone who's not. And I think that's where people oftentimes kind of get upset, is that they no longer, it's like, hey, I'm just gonna leave my doors unlocked and I'm just gonna trust the police station that's 15 miles away to make sure that nobody breaks into my house, just because they're psychic and they will know about it ahead of time. I'll trust the police to prevent break-ins, but I'm gonna leave my doors open and my windows all open. Not just unlocked. I'm just gonna open up the doors, open up the windows, maybe leave all my expensive stuff sitting in the middle of the living room for everybody to see.
Live in the hood.
Right? No, that's my point. Is that's not how anybody in their right fucking mind thinks. Like, and that's the same way, and that's a metaphor for how people are with their privacy, is that they do not see it where they can trust a company, even like Google, Facebook, any of these companies that collect analytical data. It's not their, like, what they do with that data may not be what the real concern is. It's what happens if it gets stolen.
Well, let's be real though. Corporations aren't your friends.
No.
Well, they're here for the sole purpose of making money.
Yep. They do not have your best interests in their mind. They have their best interests in mind.
They have profits in mind. And the moment that you get past that and acknowledge that, hey, they aren't my friends, that's when the real growth, when the real what you want comes out. That's how you get what you want out of a corporation anyway.
Yeah, oh, and that's largely corpse are my friend. Okay.
You're nobody's friend.
That sounds a
So
little
you
bit
must
creepy.
be a PlayStation 4 fan. You hear it here first. He thinks no crossplay is a wise decision by Sony. You heard it here first, facts. Facts because I said so.
That's the way the internet works. Kev.
I thought the internet just worked for porn.
That's a she, Kev. Did you just assume her gender?
Yes.
Oh.
She had double D's. I'm sorry.
But no, in any case, though, yeah, no. I can't remember where the hell I was going now. Got sidetracked, man. Damn chat.
Damn titties.
Screw you,
Hashtag
chat.
Polygon titties.
Kev, those were batteries.
Oh shit.
Batteries.
But no, so
we said we never speak of her vibrator again.
Her vibrator. We're talking about yours, Kev.
I get a vibrator. The drought is over.
So, in any case, though, yeah, my major thing is that whenever we talk about a company like this, oftentimes I notice that they're very cagey with how they handle their PR, and I think that also really hurts them too. With Red Shell, they were very vague and like, yeah, this is kind of what we're doing, and all the developers were like, yeah, well, it's not really that bad, guys. It's like, if it wasn't that bad, then why didn't you just tell people about it up front? Why did you have to hide it? And my thing is I don't think it was that bad. But it looks really bad whenever you try to hide something and people find out about it. And I think that's really the issue that goes on there.
That's the biggest thing, like, okay, there's a lot of business practices. Some of it they have to do surreptitiously, especially if it is trade secret sort of thing. But if it is anything involving consumer privacy, everything, what they are doing, how they are doing it, what they're doing with it, and what they are collecting should be absolutely 100% upfront.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How much I play devil's advocate, that much I'm going to say that's the way it should be. They should be outright telling you, completely forthright, up front, like, as far as, privacy, and not have a fucking, 10-page terms of service agreement that, people are going to skim through and click agree.
Yeah.
They need
fucking skim through. Most people don't read that shit anyway.
Well,
no matter how short it is, they ain't going to read it. They're just going to click agree.
I just said that.
Yeah.
What they need is a one paragraph tops, all caps, like, hey, this is the shit that we are collecting and what we are doing with.
Have you guys seen the new way Facebook does it since the whole Cambridge issue? I actually and this is something I've been looking at on there. If you logged into Facebook recently, it pops up with a message and says, hey, here's some quick info, like literally like 5 lines about privacy stuff, and then it has a couple bullet points about stuff that your profile is currently sharing, and then there's a button of like, okay, continue on, I'm finished, or let me go in and look at those in more detail, right? And the whole catching your eye with, hey, privacy stuff, guys, just real quick, look at this, and then it gives you those quick bullet points, like 30-second blurb. It's not even a Twitter message, right? It's shorter than a Twitter message. And that's really how you have to do it. Because obviously in the Twitter age, people speak in 280 characters or less, right? So you have to catch them in those first few lines. And that's something that terms of service obviously were kind of designed to manipulate and exploit, in my opinion, is that they would bury shit deep in those, and only the people that were like lawyers that for some reason found it amusing to fucking like read that for amusement. By the way, what's wrong with you? Why would you find that fun? Anyway, I don't know. That's really my thoughts on it. Is that essentially, if they are going to do it, they need to be expressly clear and letting people know about it in a way that the people would actually read. Anybody else have any final thoughts on Red Shillery before we get to the really fun story?
Oh, that was the best. That was the fun story.
Oh, no, no, no. Shit's about to get even more fun.
Are we going to talk about Zelda?
Yes! So, this week in Electric Con Arts, so we have a couple things. So, actually, let's start off with some actually slightly good news. So if anybody's heard my preaching over the past several months about the loot box stuff and the ethical parts of it and all that sort of thing, one of the things that I've been really harping on a lot of these major publishers that utilize loot boxes, like, hey, I'm not against loot boxes, have them, but handle them ethically. You know, disclose that there's gambling in the game on the covers, or on the media for it. Provide links to addiction support for people with gambling addiction. And then the big one that I thought they would never buy into was disclose the drop rates of all their shit. All right. Turns out the one that I thought would never happen was actually the one that EA did. FIFA Ultimate Team is now disclosing the drop rates of their card packs, which I'm like, what? No, you're lying. So apparently that's
I didn't see that one coming at all.
That one definitely caught me off guard. Like, I was like, okay, cool enough. And then in the next sentence, but we don't see it as gambling. And I'm like, EA, you were doing so good. You were doing so good, and then you just tripped and fell on your face. It's fucking gambling.
Can we just get a get good emoji for EA? Like, anytime we bring up EA, I just want to see the chat just fill with get good emojis.
Yeah. Well, my thing is that what I want to see is I want to see the Wilson loot box, which I think I might have an emote that is not emote slot that's not used up that I might be able to use the what we have in our Discord server, the loot box emoji. Put that because that's the Wilson loot box emoji. That's literally what that's for. But no, in any case though, yeah, they were like, because loot boxes have no monetary value, they're not gambling. And I'm like,
your ethics have no monetary value. It is gambling.
That is not the legal definition of gambling. That's the problem.
But they're like baseball cards.
That is not the legal definition of gambling.
If you can spend money onto it, then it has monetary value anyway.
Well, yes, but that's still not the definition of gambling. Hold on.
I understand. I'm agreeing with your point, and I'm adding to it. You know, that loot boxes that you can either buy or pay to skip past. Either way, it adds a monetary value to it.
Yeah. Well, and just to be clear to everybody, this is from definitions.uslegal.com/G/gambling. A person.
Is that disclosure? Oh
no, this
disclosure
is
in 2018.
Yeah, right. That's called a source. A person engages in gambling if he or she stakes or risks something of value upon the outcome of a contest of chance or a future contingent event not under his or her control or influence, upon an agreement or understanding that he, she, or someone else will receive something of value in the event of a certain outcome. Something of value does not mean money. It can be money, but it could be time. I value my time. I value my time. I don't know about you, but I know sure as hell know that the executives at EA value their time. Executives are very keenly aware of the concept of time is money. So the whole it doesn't cost money, therefore it's not gambling is a loaded crock of shit. It literally is gambling by the definition of gambling. It's more or less you spend something of value for a random chance to potentially get something that you value. That's gambling.
Facts.
Anyway, moving on from that. So they kind of were like doing good and then not so good. But that is headway. Disclosure of drop rates is one of the things I say is a good step towards being ethical in your loot boxes. still a couple more steps putting the gambling disclosure, like, you know, saying there's gambling on the ESRB rating label. ESRB won't do that because they don't see it as gambling either. Surprise, they're, you know, a consortium of the big publishers. But my next thing on here, and this is the rich one on here, and I would read the tweets, but they've been read over and over again, so I'm paraphrasing what one of the EA executive producers for Andromeda said. I think it was about a week ago or so. More or less that regarding Andromeda getting a fair shake, he said, you know, he admitted that Andromeda was a deeply flawed game, especially at launch. But, and the thing is whenever you have an ideation of a but in a sentence, that more or less means ignore everything that you just said previous to that but.
Bring on the damage control!
But maybe if there hadn't have been Breath of the Wild and several other big AAA titles releasing in the same time frame, that maybe instead of a 72, you know, average Metacritic score, that maybe Andromeda would have gotten a 77 or a 78, and you know, and that would have been a better reflection of the game. And then he also went on to say that, you know, you kind of see, you know, it definitely helped Inquisition, in his opinion. He said that Inquisition did very well because there wasn't really a lot of good games surrounded around it, which to me...
You released in Q4.
He released in Q4, and to their luck, to their sheer fucking luck, Witcher 3 got delayed.
Yeah.
So
now I'm looking at Metacritic now. You gave for the Mass Effect Andromeda score, and I think we're giving way too much credit. I'm looking at the Xbox One score. That's just the one that came up. They gave it a 76. Reviewers.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with Metacritic, fuck the review scores.
Look at the user
score.
Yeah, look at the user scores.
The user score is 4.9. That's
Yeah.
about a 49.
And
that's where the meat and potatoes you're going to get from Metacritic is, because users don't give a fuck.
Yeah, like you never know.
Get paid off.
I do notice that a lot of reviewers, professional reviewers of game, may have undue bias that's reflecting it. Like, for example, Deliverance Kingdom Come, which from user scores was seen to be a very good game. There might have been a few publications that lambasted it because, you know, in medieval Bavaria, there weren't any black people.
I got a better one for you. Besides that, people get paid off. You know, that which is always a big one. You can kind of see the jumps in scores again because people get paid off. But when you do it from platform to platform, but when you use the user score, it's usually consistent across the board.
Yep.
Because the users don't hold back.
Well, I mean, unless you get something like...
Magazines have to worry about relationships. Oh, I better not shit on this game too hard, like what Jim Sterling did, because then he got blacklisted by Konami because he shit on their games too hard. Yeah,
well, and he still shits on them every chance he gets. Well, I think, you know, Total Biscuit got blacklisted by EA, wasn't it? Similarly for...
I think it was when he blasted Mass Effect 3, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. And they blacklisted...
Because he refused to even cover it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He got blacklisted by Sega, too.
Yep. And the thing is that is... So, essentially, and to be a kind of a devil's advocate here... not a devil's advocate, but just to kind of broaden the perspective on this here. Essentially, a lot of your journalists in games journalism or YouTube reviewers, that sort of thing, they're put in this really difficult spot, right? They run the risk of being denied access, you know, or prevented from accessing a game in a timely fashion in order to make a relevant review if they don't kowtow to the publisher. Which to me is a complete fucking crock of shit, and that is so indicative of the kind of the toxicness of the games industry. But so as a result, you'll see a lot of game publications will, like, the bigger the publisher it is, the more kind of wishy-washy their reviews will often be. You gotta think of how bad Andromeda really had to be to get rated as low as it did. Because
it's the reason why IGN rarely gives out bad review scores. A bad score on IGN is like a 7. And if you get a 7, it means the game was either average or fairly mediocre. But, you know, if they don't really give a shit about the relationship, that's when you start seeing the 4s or 3s that some of these games deserve. I think this generation of games, there aren't a lot of absolutely terrible games that deserve like anything under a 5. But a lot of games don't deserve to set the 7s, 8s, and 9s we're seeing.
My thing is that I have this. I understand the idea behind it, but I fundamentally disagree with how the numerological, whatever that word is, the numeral ratings, that they do. I understand that they kind of do it pretty much nowadays based upon like grade school, you know, A plus, B minus, C, you know, D, F, and F is failing. So if you get a 5 on your game, that means it failed, right? Which to me, I think is stupid, because that pretty much, why do you have a scale of 1 to 10 when everything 5 and below is a failure? That makes no sense at all.
Right, and that's how they're using it now.
Yeah.
Because when really what it should be, I want to go back to how it was, you remember in the 90s?
Yeah.
There were a lot of games that got 5s and 6s back in the 90s.
There were, okay.
A ton of them. So it's like, let's be real about it. Back then, an average was like a 6.
Yeah.
Now, a game under a 7 isn't even worth buying.
Yeah. And that's
here's the thing on that is they are, you know, these are still opinion pieces.
Yeah.
You know, yes, these are professionals. They are paid for their opinion, but they're still opinions. Well, here's
I like to argue that, because me and Mort had that disagreement about the Witcher 3 Game of the Year when I made that exact same argument.
Wait, what? No, where?
When you and I went back and forth about The Witcher 3 and Fallout 4 for Game of the Year, and you were saying, well, their opinion means more, or their viewpoint means more because they're professional game reviewers.
Oh no,
I immediately disagree. I'm like, that's still another person's opinion.
Well, it
means more. It's more influential. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that, well, a couple pieces on there. It's an opinion. At the end of the day, it's a fucking opinion.
Well, there's someone who's going with that.
But the thing is it might be more informed, and it does carry more influence.
The simple crux of it when it comes to something like that, you know, yes, I don't like I don't usually like a dichotomy situation, but in reality, that's exactly what it is. Do you recommend this game or not? And then your review gets into detail on why you do or don't.
Yep.
Steam review system, you know, obviously just, you know, it maybe enhance that, but the basic nitty-gritty of it should not be a 4 or 5 or whatever star or anything else like that. It should be a go, no go. And then descriptive detail on why it is or isn't.
Yeah, and that's my thing, is that because you can draw, like, I actually like the way that Steam reviews work, because it's literally a person, thumbs up, thumbs down, that's it, period. You have recommend, don't recommend, and then from that you can extrapolate qualitative data based upon the percentage of thumbs up, thumbs down that it receives, right? You know, and that's where you get games that are reviewed overwhelmingly positive, somewhat positive, negative, mostly negative. You know, that sort of terminology gives you a really good idea of how well did the game do, and it gives the people a holistic view. Like, if you find a game that's overwhelmingly positive on Steam, chances are that game is going to be fucking pretty gold. Like, you know, for example, like Ori and the Blind Forest, I think, was rated as overwhelmingly positive, and that game is fucking awesome, right? It's a high quality indie game, and there's that. I don't always trust that, because I've seen games that are mostly positive or have really high positive scores, and it's some like Japanese manga.
Or in some cases, look at.
I question those review scores too, only because Quantum Break is mostly positive. And that game runs like complete ass.
Look at overall versus recent. because you can see like some dynamic changes on some games, either where they pull the rug out from support on the game, it sells out to somebody else, and they fuck over the engine of the game or something else like that, or they make a significant improvement. And I think Quantum Break is one of those where it says like mixed reviews overall, but recent reviews are positive.
Nope, I'm looking at it right now. It says mostly positive, all reviews very positive. And that goes back to what I was talking about too. Review bombs also take effect with this too. Remember when they hijacked the mods out of GTA 5? Or they tried to? And that shit went to overall negative overnight, basically.
Well, and you know what? You know, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, well, here's the thing on Mort's point on not always trusting the generalization of positive versus negative. Because Steam also, at least recently, if they haven't had it for a while, implemented an algorithm in there that prioritizes people rating the reviews as helpful or not over the top of them.
Yep.
So if you go in and check out the reviews, the ones sitting at the top also have a lot of Steam users rating those reviews as helpful.
Yep.
So say it is if somebody reviewed it or review bombed it to get positive, but it's actually pretty crap, and you go in and look at the reviews, your headline reviews are all going to say it's crap if it's an actual crap game, because people reviewed those or just said that those were helpful reviews.
Yeah, and that's something else. Now, my thing is, and I think Kev and I might have had a disagreement, or I had a disagreement with someone about this, about review bombing. And I'm like, no, I think it's a great thing. It keeps fucking developers honest. Like, if you release a good game, generally good game, is well received, and then you go in later, like Payday 2, right? You guys remember way back in the day, Payday 2 tried to drop in some fucking loot box bullshit in there, and the community just revolted against that shit.
Oh yeah, it was pay to win. My big problem is it isn't like that. It's because that fundamentally changes the game. But
right.
Keep it about the quality of the game itself.
Well,
there was another game.
Mods.
I think it was Crusader Kings. Yeah, that can negatively affect the game. I'm thinking about something like Crusader Kings even a while back. There was a story that came out that they were charging different, charging more in other countries or less in other countries, depending on how your currency exchanged. Like they weren't balancing it out, and it got review bombed. It's like, okay, that doesn't make the games bad, which is what we're asking about. It's just a matter of, are you comfortable paying the price that they're asking for? Do I agree with them charging a different amount depending on where you live? No.
Actually, a lot of games charge different amounts, but depending on where you live.
I think they should balance it out so you're paying about the same. I don't think it's fair that Australia should have to pay, say, 2-3 times the amount as we do in America because they're in Australia.
Yeah, no. My thing is that I would imagine that if you look at the statistics, and every time I've seen a story about review bombing, I didn't see the Crusader Kings one, but all the other cases of review bombing where people are trying to say how bad review bombing is, they were always citing cases whenever the developer pulled some shitty ass fucking stunt, and that was the only recourse that the consumer was left with. It's like, I don't have an ethics line I can call. I can't report you to the Better Business Bureau because it isn't really something that they would support. I am left with the only recourse as a consumer I can, and that's to let other people know that your ass is shady as fuck. And that's what review bombs for. And I think that they're actually a great fucking tool to keep a developer honest. But as long as it's not manipulated, and I think it does run the risk of being manipulated, like Crusader Kings. If it is, if that was how the story played out, it sounded like media or media outlets, one or more of them, kind of mislabeled a story because all games are sold at different prices in different outlets. That's one of the things publishing does. And that's how not CD keys, but G2A and Kingwin work. Is oftentimes they'll buy the games in those third world countries where they're cheaper and then sell them back to the first world at a heavy discount. So a lot of games get sold at different prices in different locations. So that sounds to me like that was a clickbait article that enough people bought into that led to a review bomb. And that would be a case where it was a negative influence. But going back to the EA thing on there, though, is that when you're reviewing stuff and you know like a 72 versus a 77 and so on, first of all, my first thing on there is that if you have to say that, man, you wish that your game didn't release when a bunch of other important games released at the same time, listen, buddy, it's called fucking competition. Make better shit. If you want to get better ratings, don't fuck around and think you can just like that. I'm sorry, that's how it should be. I would love it if every time a game came out, there was another game that was at least in some way competitive to it, you know, like in a remotely similar sphere of player base, so that way we aren't getting the fucking bland ass fucking Destinies and Call of Duties and these games that are 6 of one, half dozen the other. I don't care what you think about Destiny. It's fucking dry as shit. Dry as shit. It is a lack of creativity because there isn't really any competition for it that is significant enough. Maybe when Anthem comes out, Destiny might release some more competitive, or Bungie might make some DLC that's ramps things up, or Destiny 3 might ramp things up more because Anthem is better, assuming it is better. You know, but that's the thing.
That's a big assumption right there.
Yeah, it's a big assumption. Assuming it is good, which I don't really hold that with much regard.
So you're still in the camp of giving Anthem a shot?
No. I won't be buying Anthem.
No.
Even I don't care. It could be a 10 out of 10 perfect game from anybody. I don't have the fucking time to play another goddamn grindfest game. Like, Warframe is pretty much about the only one I have bandwidth for, and that's it. I literally don't have time for these. All these games that are coming out now from AAA publishers are pretty much you have to play this game and this game only from now until you fucking die and never touch another game. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want to play a game, maybe a game I can play for 100, maybe a couple hundred hours, and be like, God damn, I lost myself in that game for a while. And then you move on to another game. Like, I was a little bit appalled with Mass Effect 3's multiplayer that I played it for, like 1,200 hours or 1,300 hours on console and didn't have my manifest maxed out. That appalled me.
Yeah, that's frustrating. I love how much game time we actually got out of the game.
Yeah.
But we should have had our manifest well maxed out with the hours we put into it.
And of course, it would have taken even longer with Andromeda had I stuck with that one, which is why I was like, I just don't have fucking time for this game. That was part of what went into my motivation for saying, like, when they released patch 1.09, I was just like, I ain't got time for this shit. You guys can peddle your gambling simulator elsewhere. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time for it. I want a game that I can pick up, I can enjoy, and I can play for maybe at most a couple hundred hours, and then move on to another game. Because there's always going to be a new game coming out. I don't want to be stuck with a 5-year-old game that I'm grinding just because I'm trying to complete some challenge.
Right. And it's one thing to get 100 hours out of a game to get to. I think that but you should be, I think, if you're going to have a grind game, you should be able to have everything, if not most of everything, within 100 hours. And then when you come back, say, for example, with Destiny, if you're going to release the DLC, okay, fine. Give me another 30 to 50 hours with the DLC. Then when it comes to year 2, go back, rebuild again. There's no reason you should have this empty, endless grinding. And I feel that way on most of these games. Like, just empty, endless grinding at one point. The main reason I like Destiny is because I like the gun mechanics.
Online games is pretty generic, by the way, Pinnacle.
Oh, well, I think Overwatch, PvP games do have a certain different demographic. I think they have a similar time cost to them, in my opinion. Like, if you're playing Destiny, I realize Destiny has PvP in it, but if you're playing Destiny's like co-op mode and you're grinding for all of the legendary weapons you can get in that game or whatever, that's a time sink that you have to dedicate a shit ton of time. And then they're gonna patch it and release the DLC that has more legendary shit that you have to grind. And they keep you metered on like that, right? The PvP has a different element of time sink where, in order for you to be competitive, You have to constantly be keeping up on the meta strategies, and you constantly have to be playing to like keep your edge. And that's another time sink. Like that's the reason why I kind of have an on and off and again relationship with Rainbow Six Siege. It's a fucking amazing game. It's a great game. I just don't have the time for it. That's the truth of it. Like it just takes so much time to sink into it to be good. But you know, and that's why, you know, like with Mad Max, you know, I enjoy that game, a single player game. I've sunk probably a good amount of hours into it by now, you know, and it's got just things to do. I think someone summarized that game as the game should have been titled Open World, the open world game, because it's literally like all the open world tropes in one. But they're done pretty well. That's the thing, is that there's nothing, I can't really say that it's bad, because the wide open spaces with not a whole lot of shit makes sense in that game because it's a desolate desert fucking wasteland, right? And it does a good job of kind of making that feel, you know, competent. Secondly, you're driving a car around, so getting around places isn't too terrible. You know, you're not walking everywhere, so it doesn't feel like Dragon Age Inquisition's, you know, big open empty spaces. And most importantly on there is kind of random activity that happens all over the place to make it feel like there are people around. They're just sparse, you know, and it fits. But even with that, I just play that to like chill out and relax, you know, like I don't have to think too hard about it. I can kind of turn my brain off. Same thing with Shadow of Mordor, right? I can just turn my brain off and go kill me some damn orcs and not really have to really think about it a whole lot.
And what I wish they would do that with more of these open world games too. Like, you don't need to Ubisoft your way through all these open world games. We don't need hundreds of hours of that kind of content, because people will make their own content in game. They will find a way to continue playing the game after the game is over. So, like, realistically for me, in most of these games, I want to play the campaign. I'd love it to be more of a linear kind of experience. I wish we had more linear games in general. And we have all these open world games where it's like, hey, here's a 30, 40-hour campaign. Can we get that shit down to like 12 hours? And then, you know, if you want to go continue doing side quests and shit, or if you want to fuck around in the open world, go do that on your own time. I don't need a 50-hour campaign, like, almost ever.
Yeah, and I know you have an entirely different perspective, because while I on average will, games I like, I tend to sink in like about 100 hours into them. I noticed that you tend to on average sink a lot less into a lot of the games you play, but you play a lot more games as a result, right?
Right. Well, for me, it's a lot of of course, we all work full time.
Yeah.
I have children, and I truly do prefer that linear single player experience. As much as we talk about me being a Sony pony and joke about that, that's why I like PS4, because I feel like it's really the only platform that's really putting out good single player narrative games. Mm-hmm. I don't see them anywhere. Most of them I see are PlayStation exclusives.
Yeah, and I can see that. Like, it's not really game type for me, but I can see the desire for that. And also, yeah, our RPGs, not action games. I do think that there has been a certain we'll call it a blandization of RPGs, because RPG is such a vague genre. It can be a lot
nowadays.
Of stuff. Well, I mean, even back in the day, even going back before video games, it was pretty loose on what you could define as an RPG. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that can be an RPG, but I do feel like that a lot of them have become more and more casualized. Like, you know, Skyrim was the best example. You look at like the evolution of Elder Scrolls from Daggerfall to Morrowind to Oblivion to Skyrim. There was definitely a casualization, dumbing down the mechanics, making things less complex.
I feel like that's been the thing that they've been doing for the last 10, 15 years to RPGs.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it more friendly to the console audience. And at the end of it, all they're doing is making it less satisfying for the people who love RPGs.
Well, here's what it breaks down into, is they want people to spend less time thinking their way through the game. You know, either, you know, trying to figure out like mechanics, the best way to equip whatever, or anything else like that. and they want people to spend that time that they would be thinking their way through things or evaluating certain, more like very in-depth plot points of a story. I don't mean just thinking on, mechanics either, but like, just certain like story points that just makes you step back and like, whoa. There's some games that have that effect, just by story alone. But they want you to spend less time doing that and more time in loot boxes or fetch quests or whatever.
Yeah, and the thing is that like as far as like good RPGs, that's the reason why I've been touting Divinity Original Sin 2 to everybody, is because it is just the game is just it's an amazing RPG. And I think a lot of people don't know what the hell an RPG is anymore in order to recognize whenever a good one actually comes out, right? And that's a big thing, is that's a game where you're encouraged to kind of act in the role of the character, make choices don't really necessarily have any impact, but they just fit thematically with the character you're trying to play. Are you an angry person? Are you kind of a swarthy person? Whatever. And that's kind of a core of an RPG that I think a lot of people miss. Like, I'm going to say something probably controversial on here. Witcher 3, not an RPG, right? The reason why I don't see it as being an RPG is because I'm not really getting into like the mindset and thinking like Geralt, whatever, in those games. Any choice I make, like whatever I happen to think on there, essentially the conversation choices you make on there, like, oh, I want to be angry, or I want to be happy, it's always going to get converted and translated into Geralt speak, where he's going to turn it into kind of his semi-sarcastic, dry, like, tone, no matter what. So I'm not really role-playing as Geralt. I am guiding him through something, and that's not really role-playing to me.
So it's more or less kind of like the argument against Fallout 4 not being an RPG, because they took on the similar kind of, or even Mass Effect, which I've been saying for a while now. Everybody calls Mass Effect an RPG. It's not an RPG. It's an action game with some RPG elements, but wow, I can pick a line and it might make him say something slightly different. It might even let you slightly change the game and how it plays out a little later. So I don't know if I would go as far as say Witcher 3 is not an RPG, but I guess in that same respect, like I'm talking about Mass Effect, I can get it.
Well, let's talk about this here. Do you think that Shadow of Mordor, or I haven't played Shadow of War, so I can't speak to it, but Shadow of Mordor, do you think that that's an RPG?
Hell no.
Can you define to me the gameplay differences between Witcher 3 and Shadow of Mordor?
You're right. You don't roleplay in either of them.
You don't roleplay in either of them, and what do they? Both are open world, action adventure. You're running around, you're killing shit. You talk to people, you go on quests. Yes, you do quests in both of them. Some of them are more cinematic and involved. Some of them are a little bit more lighthearted. They're very similar games, although I see Witcher 3 as being higher quality. But I don't really see them like the actual structure, the foundation of the games. I see them as being different. But
you get to have sex on a unicorn.
Yeah.
I say it because I had sex on the unicorn.
Oh no, I did Triss. I did a Triss and I did a Yennefer playthrough. Both are required, But no, that's
I didn't do multiple playthroughs, and I ended up with the playthrough where I tried to be a player and they both gave me the finger.
Oh, by the way, best cutscene in the game. You're like, oh yeah, it's about to happen. Triss and Yennefer walk up, and then they're like, we're just gonna leave you here. Peace.
What's even funnier about that is I knew something bad was going to happen. I'm like, okay, this isn't going to end well. I was playing back in the day. I understand when both your chicks say, hey, let's meet up for this, and you didn't sign up for that, this doesn't end well. And the game basically kind of forces you into it. There's a point where you can't progress until you go see the two of them. So you had to go hold your L. So I guess I could have went and tried to find Triss or try to find Yennefer and break it off with one of them.
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't think about that until just now. I think you can.
Well,
Like,
I mean, it's not like you can't still be a player in that game. Like, let's put it this: Geralt is very much a man
There's a
whore.
difference between I'm about to say, there's a difference between being a player and being a man whore.
Yeah, he
With
like
Tracy, you were just being a player. When you get like you get the Shakira and then you get all the prostitutes, that's just being a man whore.
yeah, and then also the chick in the DLC that he bangs as well, which I'm just
He
like,
gets his DLC, man.
huh?
I figured he bang. I didn't play the DLC, but I figured he bangs her because I think he just bangs everyone.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you have a vagina, Geralt will bang you.
Well, the thing is so I know. Here's the thing: is I know that in Hearts of Stone, he bangs some chick in the course of that one, and then I'm pretty certain, depending on your decisions in Blood and Wine, you also get some action there too.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, everything. That's girl.
And SJWs are like, this game is so good, we're not even mad.
No, they were still accusing it of being racist because there weren't enough black people.
So the black people weren't mad about this.
No, it was. The funny thing about it is it's mostly white people who were outraged for black people, and black people are just busy playing the game and having fun.
I'm just saying, if they're gonna get a part of a movement, can we like have police stop shooting black people in the middle of the street?
What? That doesn't happen in.
Or I had somebody tell me that racism isn't a thing, and it no longer exists. I was told this.
Can of worms opening up now.
Yeah, it is.
You try to do something about that, people are going to mistranslate it and then try to falsely represent somebody else instead. Like when people started trying to do something about that. Instead of seeing what that was for, they turned that around like, oh, well, you're disrespecting the soldiers, and the soldiers were like, what? When did this happen?
Oh yeah.
Those are like, I don't feel disrespected.
Yeah, I think that it's that's a very complicated subject. We're near the end of our podcast time, and that would take us a long time to discuss something like that. So this is called me damage controlling and dodging that bullet. That's what that's called.
7 hours
Hey,
later,
are you doing it like the ball boy meme, where he's just dodging everything, grabbing his dick to dodge those bullets?
Yep. Well, actually, no. I gotta take that back. I'm not the one dodging the bullets, because they're obviously not gonna shoot at me. So, in any case, though, I would say, though, going back to the Mass Effect thing, as we kind of dovetail off that, if you want to get better scores from both user scores, review outlets, or whatever, make a good game. Stop making fucking excuses. The game sucked because it sucked, because you developed a game that wasn't good. It's not the end of the world. Take the fucking feedback that you got, though, and say, okay, this didn't go well, people didn't buy it, people reviewed it poorly. What are they saying? And sometimes you'll get some hate out of that shit.
Hold this L.
Well, yeah, like there's gonna be some shit people say that's just like, oh, fuck you guys, this sucked. Okay, yeah, you can set those aside, but distill out the actual shit that people say that makes sense. Oh, the narrative was really weak. The characters were bland. You know, there's a lot of detailed shit that people didn't like about Andromeda. It was very constructive, very detailed.
Instead, with the feeling, or at least that I'm getting on how they dealt with that, is like, well, people just must hate or must be sick of Mass Effect, so we're going to abandon that and work on this new game, which is probably built almost exactly the same as everybody will soon discover, but it looks prettier.
Right, and what people were actually saying was, no, we want the Mass Effect games like the old ones that we liked, and this one fucking sucks.
Well, what it was is that, first of all it wasn't that they thought people were tired of Mass Effect. It was all the bigwigs, all the important guys, their heavy hitters, were already working on Anthem, and they're like, yeah, we should probably, I guess, make a Mass Effect game. Well, okay, that's gross simplification. That's not actually how it happened. But they were essentially all the big guys were focused on this new project, and I can understand what they were doing because it's a new project. People are nervous. whenever you do new IPs, it's a big financial risk. Mass Effect, not as much of a big financial risk because it has brand recognition. It would take a lot to royally fuck that up. And they royally fucked that up.
See, these publishers need to be doing instead, or they're with the development studios that they own, is they don't need to get brand recognition on the IP. They need to get brand recognition on their studio. Because here's the thing: is like there's a number of people out there are clamoring about the potential quality of Cyberpunk 2077 because of who makes it.
Yeah, it's true. Or you look at, or even when you look at like other games, like The Last of Us when it came out off the strength of the people who made Uncharted.
Yeah, that's what these publishers need to finally wake up and realize is the brand strength that they need to build. Because like this works in other business markets too. Even if it's not that great, they build off of not a product name, but off of a company name. Like actually,
like McDonald's. McDonald's has this new burger. Hey, I like McDonald's. I'm gonna go try this McDonald's new burger because I already like McDonald's.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
There's a balance to be struck there, though, I think, because BioWare has that brand recognition. They have that consumer trust, or had. And yeah, and the thing is, though, is that they haven't had the best history, right? Obviously, Dragon Age 2 did not receive very well when it was released, which that happens. They picked themselves back up. They're like, hey, let's make Mass Effect 2. Maybe I got this backwards. Can't remember. But if I got that right, it's more or less they came back and made a good game as a result. I think the problem is that you have to balance, and I understand that game developing companies are a business and their primary goal is to make money, especially when they're owned by a AAA developer where there's also investor interest involved, and that's where shit really gets complicated. But here's my thing is you need leadership of that development studio, especially like EA, the general manager. He needs to be an expert at balancing corporate interests, but also knowing when to kind of stand for creative interests, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like possibly, and I don't know for certain, but I feel that there is a possibility that Aaron Flynn might have been putting too much emphasis on the corporate interests over the creative interests. I don't know for certain. I have no insight into BioWare at all, but that's a theory that I have that is more or less based upon the fact that we saw as the founders of BioWare left and Aaron kind of took over control, we saw a significant increase in monetization models, some not very well received DLC choices from the Ashes, and that sort of thing, that of course Aaron defended.
And I posed on something like that as far as, trust in the name of the developer, not the publisher, the developer. Say a developer pushes out an experimental and possibly great game, but it's still experimental, so they may have some failures here. Every, maybe 4 years or so, something on the timeline more of CD Projekt Red does, just because they take their time on that shit. But that under that same developer name, they also produce possibly every year, or at the slowest every 2 years, your mass market, everyday, open world action RPG along with that. Would you still have trust in the publisher to buy into their experimental projects that they release on a slower timeline that may have a possible, that has the passion, of creativity behind it, that it's going to have even if it misses some quality or has some failures here and there, because it is more, temperamental projects, but it has the passion of creativity behind it. Whereas that same studio name also produces the moneymaker, so to speak. Would that lose your trust because they're more frequently pushing out the moneymakers, but are still trying to push the creative projects or putting out the creative projects?
Yeah, I think that's a fair idea. I mean, maybe adjust the timelines, because I think that a lot of games take a little bit longer than Call of Duty taking two years.
2 years, take like 6 months. Copy paste and move forward.
But here's a risk on that sort of thing: is their experimental projects. You know, that IP that IP can turn into the big money maker. So there's a track on there, like say Mass Effect was, you know, the new experimental game. Well, in a way, it did have some things that were a little bit different for the generation that it came out. So we look at that, and then they turned it into a long-term IP that becomes more generic, more massive money making, and they kind of abandon that as a creativity project and then start on another one, say Anthem. Mm-hmm. So that's the case on what has actually happened here. I really don't doubt. I don't count on that at all whatsoever. But that, you know, would be an interesting idea market on there. And if they were actually doing that, it would restore a little bit of trust from me back into BioWare. Not to say that I'm going to jump out and buy it, unfortunately, because they've tarnished themselves too much on just crap.
I think a lot of it is that and this is a risk. Again, this is what I was talking about with the corporate interest versus the creative interest. At the same time, also along that same kind of vein, is that a company in general, as a good practice, a company should always be focused on earning the money of their consumers. And I think at a certain point, BioWare kind of got to a stage where they just they felt entitled to the money of their consumers.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, you can't do that. That's literally just going to bite you in the ass every time you do it.
Right.
And I think that's the sentiment that I got. And I understand when you develop a game, especially if you're an actual developer, you know, you're on boots on ground, so to speak. You're the people involved in making the game. You tend to have a pretty emotional involvement in that game. So whenever it comes out and people are like, yeah, no, this isn't really that good, you tend to be defensive, right? That it's gonna happen. But at the same time,
you don't blame Zelda.
You don't blame Zelda, and you also don't, like, even when the game first came out, good God, was the damage control strong. Yeah. I just see it as they have been damage controlling this since the moment. It's like, hey man, stop being defensive, take a breath, and actually listen to the criticism being put at you, and just go back to the drawing board and try it again. You know,
some people that's hard for. Like me,
yeah, it is hard.
I had to learn not to. Like the job I have now, I damage controlled so much when I first started, and I eventually learned, shut up, take the criticism, and move forward. Yeah. And I think for some people that's difficult. I know it was for me.
Oh no, it's. I think it's hard for everybody to be told that they're wrong, and it's a practice. I don't think that it's an inherently, because everybody wants to think that they're right, they're important, they're validated in some way, that they are cool. You know, they're good. What's the term? We're all monkeys in suits, begging for the approval of others.
You learn that we're all a bunch of dorks and nobody gives a fuck.
No, that's a movie quote from Revolver.
Yeah, it's a Revolver reference.
Yeah, but that is actually kind of a true statement. It's not 100% generalized of everybody, but it's to a varying degree inherent in everybody. Everybody wants to have their in-group, to find their kind of community, to feel validated in their existence, right? So
you're starting to justify fanboys. And
I'm getting to that. But in that, and I'm actually going to just to be safe, I'm going to roll this into final thoughts on here, so we can start getting wrapped up. In that, with people wanting to feel validated, you have to guard against the pitfalls of wanting to feel validated, which is, You know, you want to feel validated so much that you disregard things that that fall contrary to you wanting to be validated. That's where fanboys come in, right? Fanboys, they like this thing, and therefore any contrary statement to liking that thing, they will attack outrightly, right?
Like Fortnite crossplay.
Yeah, that is not a good look. Yeah, let's just throw some shade, by the way, on Sony and all the fucking Sony fanboys. Crossplay's the fucking future. You're on the wrong side of history. I hate to break it to you. Sorry. The rest of the gaming universe.
Can we talk? Like, let's talk about all this. I don't know what's worse: Sony blocking crossplay, or Xbox crossing crossplay unless you pay first.
That's true. Good point. Fair point. Xbox Live.
PS4, you can play free-to-play games online for free.
Not on the PS4.
You can.
No, you need PS Plus now. They changed that with the PS.
Unless it's a free-to-play title.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, I guess that makes sense. But still, they regardless, yeah, we'll throw Sony and their fanboys under the bus of crossplay is a good thing. It's pro-consumer. I'm okay with people wanting it to be an option in like PvP first-person shooter titles where PC would be at a kind of an unfair advantage. Although my personal opinion on that is make mouse and keyboard natively compatible with the consoles. My thoughts.
They're working on that apparently on Xbox.
Yeah, no, they've been working on that for fucking.
Well, Xbox this week was in talks with Razer.
Oh, okay. Well,
so it looks like Razer may do. I think they're doing it for the next Xbox. Yeah, I doubt it's going to come on this generation because we're like a year or two away.
I'm just throwing it out there, Kev. You know that kind of means that Xbox might be going the route that I was saying, is essentially making a Steam machine, but instead it's an quote unquote Xbox computer.
I think the only thing that you and I disagreed on, really, I liked it conceptually, is I didn't want them to. Yeah, I don't want them to market it as a PC. Yeah. Still market it as a console. Otherwise, you're going to alienate those console players. But make Xbox more PC-like. I think that's totally what they're doing. And I think some of the Xbox guys are with it, and some of them are like, oh my god, no, I don't want a PC.
Yeah. But in any case, though, kind of staring back over at the Spyware thing, I think that a lot of people, in wanting to feel validated, like fanboys, tend to shun criticism, and I think that that's something that you have to actively kind of take down that instinctive guard in some cases. Sometimes you have to put on your fireproof suit because you're just gonna be getting shit just for, there's not constructive criticism at all. People are just throwing shade at you, right? Mm-hmm. That's one thing. I'm not talking about if someone walks up to me and says, your fucking nose is ugly, bitch, and then smacks me in the face and then walks away. Okay, that's not constructive criticism. Not what I'm talking about. What I'm meaning is someone says, hey, I noticed you talked to that person and they weren't really receptive to what you're saying. You maybe try talking to them this way and they might receive you better or something to that effect. And then you instinctively would be like, nuh-uh, I don't do anything wrong. Maybe tone that down a bit and receive some criticism.
Or in layman's terms, Sony should have crossplay. The Last of Us!
Yeah. But
that's not okay.
Yeah, no, I think BioWare, unfortunately, between their fanboys and them at BioWare, I think they've kind of unfortunately formed this kind of echo chamber where BioWare can do no wrong.
And BioWare does plenty wrong.
And they've done plenty wrong for many, many years. I
don't know where the change came, because the community took them to town for Dragon Age 2. Mm-hmm. They took them to town even harder for the Mass Effect 3 ending. Mass Effect Andromeda comes by, everything is okay. What they literally did was rewrite the trilogy in a new universe with bland characters.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it was kind of like Mass Effect 1's characters only stripped of all personality, and then Mass Effect 2's storyline only without all the interesting characters.
That was the best part of Mass Effect 2.
That was the only good part of People have some nostalgia goggles. The main story of Mass Effect 2 was fucking garbage.
I'm indifferent because I feel like Mass Effect 2, as a whole cohesive product, is probably my favorite game of all time.
Yeah,
only because that part at the end of Mass Effect 3, once you start that conversation with the Elusive Man, where you go back to the Citadel.
Yep.
That's where they lose me. If they would have finished everything on Earth in the last battle, favorite game of all time.
Yeah. But in any case, though, let me tidy up my final thoughts there. Xaiphen, any final? Hey, Xaiphen, how about reading us a quote, an inspirational quote?
You know what? I'm just gonna read it out here.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, there's this movie. It's a Guy Ritchie movie, and I've discovered I've liked a lot of his stuff. It's called Revolver. I highly recommend watching it, and that along with the movie Memento. There's something about yourself that you don't know, something that you will deny even exists until it's too late to do anything about it. It's the only reason you get up in the morning, the only reason you suffer the shitty boss, the blood, the sweat, and the tears. This is because you want people to know how good, attractive, generous, funny, wild, and clever you really are. Fear or revere me, but please just think I'm special. We share an addiction. We're approval junkies. We're all in it for the slap on the back and the gold watch. The hip, hip, who fucking raw. Look at the clever boy with a badge polishing his trophy. Shine on, you crazy diamond, because we're all just monkeys wrapped in suits begging for the approval of others.
Damn right, Mr. Greaves. All right. Yeah. Kev's final thoughts.
My emotional quote is, "These hoes ain't loyal." Because I can't think of a way to top Xaiphen's quote. So it's going to go back to Chris Brown quotes.
All right. Well, anyway.
Of course, join me on youtube.com/KevN7. I'll probably start streaming back on Twitch eventually at N7Kev on Twitch. Any more shilling? I charge Banshees on Twitter. I guess if you can't catch all the Mass Effect theming, yeah, it's all there. And yeah, that's it. That's what I got.
We all like that series.
I think
there was
so
a point where this was the Skyrim podcast, and I was in here like, because we all know I dislike Skyrim. I still call it baby's first RPG.
This is where I leave everybody. Here's a bunch of fucking rabbits. Bunch of rabbits for everybody. Rabbits for everybody.
Do we have ponies?
Wait, you all.
Nope, we got this.
Point teeth. There's another for you.
Yes. Anyway, so obviously we will be back next week, and we should be playing. I believe we should be playing some Vermintide 2 next week, because Xaiphen will be getting it soon, and then we'll all have it, and we'll all be playing it.
Choice on this.
No, you don't have a choice on this. You will be getting Vermintide 2, without your approval.
I found an approved of emoji finally. It's hard to go against Charizard.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to do it except bunnies, because bunnies multiply like crazy.
Like rabbits?
Yeah, kind of like rabbits.
Xaiphen also has access to those emotes, I think, too. Maybe does he? I might have to.
My question is still though. I appreciate Charizard, but why not Charmander?
I don't know. Anyway, so we're gonna get signed off here for the day, guys. We'll be back, like I said, next week with a game stream with Vermintide 2, and then we'll be back in a couple weeks for another podcast where we will probably spend most of the time off on some tangent about more than likely Bioware stuff. I don't.
Praise Gaben.
It is what it is. Anyway, guys, y'all have a good one. We'll be back next week. Until then.
Before we go, I have one more announcement. And it's a happy announcement. I kept Gaben out of my wallet. My wallet has been saved from the Steam sale. Glorious! It's important.
It's not done yet.
Hey, I've survived more than half of the sale. Crazy! Longer than I usually allow.
Yeah, no, I've got my eye on Vermintide too. Got it.
I have my eye on Final Fantasy 15. 15, and I've had my eye on Final Fantasy 15 and Ni no Kuni.
We need more of this stuff. Watch. More rabbit.